speech is on domestic violence. Did you guys know that every 1 minute there are 20 individuals that are experiencing physical and mental abuse? And I'm here to talk to you about what resource can we use and how do victims develop this type of fear that ends up making them never asking for help. Okay. Domestic violence has had a decline since in 1994 when the Congress passed a law that it was now illegal to hurt someone. It was now a crime to do domestic violence, which meant they would get jail time. And also, even though it has still passed a law, and before and after, there was still alarming rates. Moving forward, I will provide a resource, which is the VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women Act, and what victims had to endure being in domestic violence, and including their types of domestic violence and percentages. My first main point is VAWA was an important resource and was a law that was passed in, like I said, in 1994. According to the Obama White House 2019, there was a 35% decrease with domestic violence. And since it was now a crime, you can actually arrest someone for it. So they would face actual jail time. You can also use the hashtag VAWA to whatever post to get help. And also, according to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, this is the type of help that victims would get. They would get free housing. They would also get benefits like unemployment insurance, so they would get paid while they were getting the help that they needed, and it would also rebuild their lives. Victims abuse. You have to recognize that domestic violence isn't only physical, it could also be mental, and what your abuser will try to do is to take over your mind. Domestic violence is not only physical and mentally, it could also be emotionally, sexually, and stalking is also a form of domestic violence. According to The Guardian in 2014, usually when you tell a woman to simply just leave, they can't, because 75% of women abused simply end up dead, so they get killed from their abuser. And 1.3 million victims endure physical assault, and most of these cases just end up going unreported. And at least 10 million adults experience domestic violence in just 1 year. My second point is victims develop PTSD during domestic violence, and even though they develop PTSD, it's not really known, it's not really recognized so much in domestic violence victims. According to Beaufort Memorial and the United States Department of Justice in 2021 and 2022, usually this makes victims feel more vulnerable, helpless, and things that you develop while enduring this is depression, suicidal thoughts, and even health problems, including chest pain, asthma, headaches, and tension in your heart rate. We're almost coming to an end to my speech, and even though we have seen a positive progress since the 1994, since the VAWA law was passed, we still have high rates in domestic violence. This speech consisted of how VAWA decreased and how it has saved lives. Recognizing abuse and its alarming rates. Finally, never doubt yourself in reporting domestic violence because it is a serious crime. It's important to always report abuse because, as I've said before, 75% of them end up with you dying. So it's not only just about you coming to an end and wanting to leave, because if you don't get the resources that you need, if you don't go get help, you could possibly end up dead. A story that illustrates my point in this is, as a kid, I always liked watching Latin American dramas, which you may know it as the telenovelas. You kind of see sometimes they include viewer discretion because usually most of the drama that goes on in there is based on real life. And since I was young, I never experienced it firsthand, but I got to see how there are different types of domestic violence, how different types of abuse you can get, and it not only being physical. Due to high domestic violence rates, the VAWA remain persistent and will create a better life in the future, because rates haven't dropped significantly, but they are slowly coming down.